Hello and welcome to Tracy Mommy Reads. I am back again with another video. Today I am going to be talking about the book Theo of Golden by Alan Levi. Theo of Golden. This was another book that came across my radar on Instagram, right? And like I've mentioned before, like whenever I'm like on Instagram, like the For You type page or the, search page or whatever, I always curate that page. I go and I, like a lot of bookish content so that page is populated with those things, because that's what happens when you like certain content or engage with certain content on Instagram. That's how they populate, that feed. So I go and I intentionally like certain things so that I can get more of that content when I go to that, page or whatever. And a lot of times, there'll be book recommendations. And most of the time it's book recommendations, because people are like sharing books that they like. So if they say that they like them, they want other people to read them. And I screenshot the hell out of everything. And a lot of times I will either like compile them in a note, or I will do a saved list on Amazon, where I go and I'll just like look at the blurbs and like, is this a book that I even want to do? And sometimes it is and sometimes it's not, the way that because everybody, reading is subjective. Is like everybody's going to get something different from it. Everybody's going to think certain blurbs or stories sound interesting, and to other people it might not. So I take everything, again, with a grain of salt. But when I saw the blurb for this one, I was intrigued because I love, my tastes have just been so eclectic, even though it does seem like I'm just all in with the mystery and suspense books. I think it's just with those type of books, it's just the unexpected sometimes. Whereas with other books, like romance books, there's going to be happily ever after. That the friends to lovers are going to end up being lovers. Those stories are amazing, and I love stories like that. But I think that may be why sometimes when I'm, like looking for something to get me out of a reading slump, or I'm looking to read something, I've been gravitating more towards, the suspense mystery thrillers, because you don't know what to expect. However, I also love good, just like literary type pieces, women's fiction, sweeping stories about humanity and finding yourself, that aren't just really connected to, something so like microwave and fast, and things that you have to sit with, stories you have to sit with, being introduced to new words, new ideas, new cultures or traditions. So I feel like I have a very eclectic, reading palette in those terms. I love a good memoir, which I'm going to be talking about one next week. I love poetry. I don't feel like I'm just in a box, even though primarily what I seem to share on here is different. Sometimes I don't share certain books that I've read because I cannot even really articulate the way they made me feel or how much I enjoyed them. Obviously there are a lot of books that I didn't maybe enjoy enough to even come talk about, but there are some that I really enjoyed, but I'm just like, I don't even know what to say. I'm gonna have to sit with that for a while. But this one I wanted to talk about because let me do the blurb as I've started doing, so that I can keep myself within certain parameters and not give away spoilers. Okay. So there's like a highlighted part here. I'll read that first. One spring morning, a stranger arrives in the small southern city of Golden. No one knows where he has come from or why. Okay, so that in itself kind of drew me to this because, I love a good like time travel, sci-fi. Like, what is that? Something's going on here. Is he from the future? Is he from the past? Who is Theo of Golden? So then you go on to read the actual blurb, and it says, his name is Theo, and he asks a lot more questions than he answers. Theo visits the local coffee house where 92 pencil portraits hang on the walls. Portraits of the people of Golden done by a local artist. He begins purchasing them one at a time and putting them back in the hands of their rightful owners. With each exchange, a story is told, a friendship born, a life altered. This is a story of giving and receiving and seeing and being seen. Theo of Golden is a beautiful, crafted novel about the power of creative generosity, the importance of wonder to a purposeful life, and the invisible threads of kindness that bind us together. So I was all in because I wanted something feel good. And I would just go in saying the end of this book was not feel good. Okay? Alan Levi, the end of this book was not feel good. But the journey is what matters. Because, I mean, the same could be said of life, you know. We're all born, and you, depending on how you get through your childhood and adolescence and get into young adulthood and either take life by the horns and start living and doing things and making things happen, or not. I mean, you know, it could go either way. But if you do truly live a good life, you know, have some amazing experiences, have people that you love, and give back and all the things, I mean, there's still only one way for it to end, ultimately, for all of us. So that's all I'm gonna say about that. So as the blurb says, and as the title alludes to, Golden is a small southern city, right? And Theo is from Europe, and I cannot remember his specific nationality, because he had such, I mean, because we're talking about a man who was like, I want to say he may have been in his 80s. So he has lived such a full life. He was a celebrated artist, and like he had been all over the world, right? So he kind of embodied a lot of different places, you know, and different things. But he stuck out like a sore thumb in Golden because he had an accent, the way that he dressed, you know, the way that he not only spoke with the accent, but it just was so deliberate. And like he would ask all these questions, and when people would ask him questions, he was pretty like strategic in the way that he either answered or didn't answer them, and he always turned it back to people. Now, I will tell you, the way that the story unfolded, it was very slow going in. It was very slow. And at times I did walk away from it because I was like, you know, again, so used to the suspense and thriller, but I'm like, where's this going? You know, it can't just be about this man coming here, because what happens is he goes into a coffee shop, you know, because he goes to Golden on business. That's all is being said. Then he goes into this coffee shop, and like the blurb said, there's like all these illustrations of just random people in the town, because it's people that have come into the coffee shop, and there was an artist who was there, and you know, sometimes he goes and he like sketches people while they're in the coffee shop, and the owner put all the pictures, you know, the portraits up on the walls, and you could buy your picture if you wanted to, but a lot of them, you know, remained on the wall. A lot of people didn't buy them. So Theo, because he has some money, he starts buying the portraits, and he wants to know who the people are because he wants to gift them their portrait. But because he has an eye for art, like he can see, like let's say if he the first portrait he bought, I think it was of a woman, and he's looking at her eyes and he's looking at her hands, you know, and he's saying things like there's sadness there, something happened to her. Like he can read into what the artist saw when maybe they were, you know, doing the portrait. So like, you know, so for example, like the first person, you know, of course people are like kind of leery, like, who is this man? what he wants to do, what? Because he sends them a letter, saying, "Hi, my name is Theo. I got your portrait from," I think the place was called the Chalice. From the Chalice, that was a coffee shop. And I'll be at the fountain in the middle of town at this time. If you would like to come, I would love to meet you and give you your portrait. So the first woman, she's very leery. Her husband's like, who is this crazy person? But I think her uncle or somebody, she knows the person that owns the Chalice. So he was like giving her like, oh, it's just some little old man. He just came. He seems harmless or whatever. So she goes and, she sits down and they start talking. And then this is where you could tell it was going to be something a little different, because he did start talking to her and asking her questions and, like trying to get to know her. And as the blurb says, I feel like I made this connection early on. I think his whole purpose was he wanted to give people not only the gift of their portrait, but the gift of being seen, right? And it was pretty much like a double entendre, because you're being seen because this is your portrait that someone has captured, but I see more than, what's on here or what you're showing to the world. You seem very sad, and I just want you to know that, life can be beautiful and this and that. And he, and the woman started crying and, all this stuff. And he did that for a lot of people. It was just for them to take a moment, for someone who didn't even know them, to affirm them. And from the human in me sees the human in you, and just have that one-on-one connection. And it helped a lot of the people that he talked to. And of course, some people didn't show up. And then there was one that was very resistant and did some crazy stuff. But he started to, make a life there in Golden. Story had got out about him doing this, and, people knew him. He had formed friendships. He got a little apartment, and he even had this really sweet friendship with this woman who, she was homeless, but she also had some mental health issues, and she rode a bicycle that someone had given her a long time ago. But we get into her story and find out how she ended up like that. And that's the thing. You kind of get into all these people's stories, and a lot of times you just dismiss people as being whatever mask maybe that they're showing you, because you have brief interactions with people. And I know myself, let's say if I've had a rough day, or even if I haven't had a rough day, or if I just came from the gym, or, I got a lot of things on my mind, or I'm thinking about something, I go into the store, and a lot of times I'm not making eye contact with people. And, I don't know what my face looks like. Maybe I got RFB, what it was, RBF, resting bitch face. I don't know. But, it's hard to judge somebody from just seeing them out in public and not really interacting or talking to them. You don't know what they're going through, what they're thinking. But a lot of times we have these preconceived notions, and he was trying to dispel all of that, to have people have a moment where somebody wanted to look past the mask, wanted to look past the veil. And he also had a friendship with a man who had a daughter who was, had been in a car accident, and, she had problems with her leg. There's another young guy who was a musician. So he started to form these meaningful relationships with people, and they became his, family. He was married before and had a daughter that passed away. And I think as the story unfolded, I feel like this was kind of his way, because he was one of these men one of these people, but I know specifically a lot of men probably could relate to this, where they have spent their entire lives working, especially if you're at a high level in whatever you're doing, whether it's business, if it's entertainment, if it's, the arts or whatever. You work at a high level, you're making a lot of money, but you don't give your family a lot of time because you don't have it. You're just so committed to the chase of this or pursuit of this dream, of this money, of this life, that the people closest to you don't really get to know you. They don't really get the benefit of you really being there for them. And I think in a lot of ways, he probably was trying to make up for that. But again, and I appreciated all that. And I thought that was, oh, that's so, but what are you doing in Golden? Like, why do you pick this place? What's your business here? And much like a suspense or mystery thing, when that was revealed, I kind of figured out something early on, because he talked about, like, as a young man, before he, got really kind of world famous or start making money or whatever, he talked about this woman. They both were young. She was from the United States, and, she left when he decided to take this job or this internship or whatever it was. Like, it was like their little love affair had come to an end, but he never ever got over her truly. And so you can kind of put the pieces together if you want to, but there's more, okay, which I'm not going to tell you. So there was, a couple of reasons he was there in Golden, and it was like his life pretty much was coming full circle. Okay, his life came full circle, but for as quaint and as picturesque as Golden seemed, and how it seemed also that Theo's influence was kind of doing something to warm the town, to change thoughts and opinions and ideas. He's just one man, And I talked about this in another video when I was reviewing a book about people are gonna people. You have some people who it is just in their nature. It could be because they weren't nurtured, but you have some people, they are just always going to find a way to just bring chaos to every situation they're in. And I know that whole thing about hurt people, and that's it's just, at some point though, you got to take accountability for your life, and you got to get some help, and you can't just inflict your shit on the world, and there were people like that in Golden. And towards the end of the book, it became more apparent, that Theo would probably, have to deal with something that was going on with that at some point. So, yeah. That's the only part of the book I did not like. But, I mean, again, I feel like he came full circle. He came there to do what he came there to do. All was revealed, and he still made a lasting impression in the lives of the people that he met, whose portraits he'd given, and their lives were forever changed, and they would never, ever forget him. And I think that's kind of what true legacy is about, right? People talk about legacy and leaving something behind where you live on, whether it's, children, contribution that you've kind of made to society. Like you think about big entertainers like Michael Jackson, like his music or whatever. And yeah, those are legacies. Those are things to be proud of. Those are things that will live on long after people are gone. But the idea of kindness, you being kind to one person, and that person being kind to one person, and that person maybe being kind to two people, then those two people being kind to 10 people. I feel like that is what is going to have a bigger impact on the world at large, especially in today's times. Okay? And off my soapbox I go. But yeah, Theo of Golden, it was one of those kind of books. Very slow paced, picks up maybe midway as things are revealed. And I think this is one of those books you have to kind of be in the right kind of frame of mind and mood to read. Like just a how you have those like lazy days where you're kind of in the bed most of the day, or you're just like, maybe walking around or sitting on the back porch or at the beach or wherever. This is that type of book to pick up when you're not in a hurried pace, or you're not looking for like a lot of what's going to happen next type thing. But I think it is a book that will touch you if you're the right kind of reader to get the type of lessons that authors, disperse in their work. So anyway, if you have read Theo of Golden, I would love to know your thoughts in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure that you like this video and go ahead and take the opportunity to subscribe to my channel if you have not done so already. Okay? Thanks again. You guys enjoy the rest of your weekend, and I will see you next week. Bye.